up, let's take a ride. Matteo Bianchi's got the guide. On a journey through the cloud we'll glide, gonna share the secrets deep inside. This is my journey episode we meet. Cloud native tales, Matteo's feet. Click and play, let's hit repeat. Dive in now, it's gonna be sweet. From the basics to the peak we climb, step by step we're stacking time. In the cloud where dreams align, insight flows with every rhyme.
Welcome back, everybody. Sorry for the delay to my journey, where we explore the fascinating stories of cloud native engineers, pioneers, and community builders. I'm your host, Steve Wade, and today we're joined by someone whose passion for cloud native technology is matched only by his ability to teach anyone, from seasoned engineers even to his grandmother. So today's guest is Matteo Bianchi. He is a cloud native metalhead and seasoned engineer who's blazed his own unique trail through the tech landscape, from his journey as a backend developer to becoming a digital nomad and a cloud native consultant. He's shown that there's many paths to success in our industry. I first met Matteo on the conference circuit, and his authenticity, that is a hard word to say, for technology and community has made him a good friend. Matteo, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. It's pleasant for me to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
No problem. And I remember we were just speaking before. We were saying I actually don't know a lot about your history, although we've met and spoke for many, many times. So I'm hoping to learn something myself on this. So
Absolutely.
Before we dive deep into the cloud native journey, I'd like to know something quite simple and straightforward. What was your first computer?
So let's say the first computer I owned that was only mine and not shared with other people in my family was a very old HP laptop. I think it was something like a Pavilion from early 2000, like very, very, very old, as in it was given to me when it was already like 4 years old or 5 years old. I remember it was running, I guess, Windows XP or 95. I think XP. I'm pretty sure XP. Not old enough for running Windows 95. And I was using it to mainly, I guess, like play games and sometimes maybe even like do some small homework. I remember that my elementary school started like educating us on computers, which was very nice. We would like use this software with a wizard, like speaking, like text to speech kind of thing, which was very cool. And we, of course, would write in Italian, and he would read with an English voice. So it was horrible to witness. And yeah, I touched other laptops before and like other tech. The first I ever touched was a Commodore because my uncle owned one, and well, he still owns it, I guess, somewhere in the cellar. But yeah, that was it.
No, so what about your first programming language? Do you remember?
So my first ever programming language was C, and I was taught that in school, like in high school. But the first like professional one was PHP. PHP 5.6, I would say.
It's a good
So
memory.
a very pretty stable version. I migrated everything in that specific gig to 7. I think it was 7 was the latest version, but we were still on 5.6. And this reveals a bit like which year probably I'm talking about. And it was such an experience, and I don't want to use PHP again. I know PHP 8, maybe 9 now is way better. It's easier to read and stuff. It's less verbose. But I did use like Symfony and Laravel and like all the other cool frameworks that PHP has to offer. And I just honestly don't like the language. I vouch for mainly, I know it's ugly, but Java, it's very effective.
Oh God.
It's still like very, yeah, I know. If I had to choose now, of course, my my languages are Python and Go.
Mhm.
I don't use Java anymore. But if I have to say, hey, what would you want to see taught in high school? Java.
Not
We
Go.
can do whatever. I would say no.
Okay.
Go is a bit like, I would say Go is more for university, maybe, but for high school, like to introduce people to programming, Go probably would feel, at least like syntax wise, a bit more difficult than a plain Java. Java is more like speech. You can just
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
write and that works. Golang, you have to still know some constructs and stuff.
True.
I don't, or even Python. Python is perfect for learning. Like exactly, I would start any university course or even like high school with Python because that's actually pretty flexible. You can do whatever. It's a multi-purpose. It's always useful. So yeah, I would say that is my final
Okay.
choice. If I had to choose
And
one of my favorite languages.
very quickly, first version of Kubernetes.
Ooh, first version of Kubernetes, I think it was like 1.12.
Okay.
I would say, so not like super old, but not even very recent, I guess.
Yeah, Michel Dinani was talking pre 1.0, which blew my mind
Oof.
last week. I thought I was relatively early. I was 1.2, but yeah,
1.2, okay. Ooh, yeah.
Michelle was pre V1, so props to
But you
her.
have to consider, I was in one of the first companies in Italy using Kubernetes.
That's true.
Just to
Mic
let you
drop.
know when we adopted Kubernetes.
So you've had quite the evolution, right? You were a full stack. Well, you were a back end engineer, then you went to full stack, then you went to kind of more of the DevOps and cloud roles. So, like, what inspired that kind of transition?
So I would say that most of my career hops or jumps have been driven by, well, mainly curiosity and desire to learn more about the technologies to dive deeper. And from, I think, my laziness, like that's it. I'm very lazy. I want to automate stuff. I don't want to do boring things. If I can write boilerplate code once and then reuse it, I create a class. If I can create a module for Terraform without like every time get crazy about creating a landing zone, I'm doing that. Same for Elm releases, for whatever YAML I'm writing. So I really like to do things once, doing them pretty okay, maybe spending some more time, and making them last for a bit. And so this mindset really helped me transition from software to DevOps, then cloud, and now more like a platform kind of role.
You like to keep things dry slash boring slash lazy.
Absolutely. Boring is my thing.
Same.
Especially this I learned when I was an SRE. If the system is up and is not crying and no one is crying about it, that's fine. Boring is good.
Boring is very good. Boring and easy to understand is very good.
Yeah.
Complex and crazy is not. So,
Nope.
so you're now a freelance cloud native consultant, similar to me.
Yeah.
So what chose or what made you choose that path?
So it all started when I was building a platform inside a company, within an Italian company, a big one. The thing was that I reached a ceiling because in Italy we don't have an individual contributor path. Either you jump to management or you're stuck in this like senior something role, and there's almost nothing above. This is for classic Italian companies. Of course, if you go to work at Red Hat in Milan, you have your level system that everybody uses. Um, I mean, pushed by that and pushed by the also salary ceiling, why not? I decided to open my freelancing. My dad is like a tax consultant, so that's also part of it. I was pushed a little
Shout
bit
out to
to open
Daddy.
my own business. Yeah, yeah, and it's been great. The first year was a bit difficult because Italy has a crazy taxation system that taxes you in advance on the forecasted revenues that you'll make next year based on your current revenues, which is okay. I
Interesting.
don't have that money now, so yeah. To start a business, you have to already have money, so which is great. A bit counterintuitive, I would say. And well, I started to see a gap in many companies, especially in Italy, a gap of knowledge around Kubernetes, cloud native, DevOps as a methodology, as a culture more than a methodology, actually. So I decided to start educating. Education was more scalable than just me consulting a single company and just like solving their or be their Kubernetes doctor, which I did. Don't get me wrong. But my biggest gigs have been on education, on building a team, on productizing our internal platform, on, of course, migrating workloads and orchestrating the migration from on-prem to the cloud. And I would say I'm very interested in this kind of thing. I'm very interested in seeing a transition
Mhm.
between the old and new without like throwing away the old. It's just like decluttering. It's not like old is bad, but old can be better. Yes.
Mhm.
So why not? And on top of that, I really like having the opportunity of working with different companies.
Same.
I would be bored if I worked with just one customer for like more than I don't know how many years. And yeah, my maximum has been like 3 years working on the same project, and after that, I'm bored. Because I mean, you still need time to get end to end and to get ownership of a piece of software or a product in this case. But after a while, you need a new challenge. I need to be
Yeah, same.
constantly excited about stuff. Otherwise, I lose interest.
Yeah, and I also think to like 2.5, 3 years, right? That gives you enough time to be able to leave a legacy.
Yeah,
You know, they know what value you've brought. Hopefully, you've brought them some value. Um,
yeah, that's a
and yeah,
sweet spot, I
I'm
think.
the same. I don't really stay. I think my longest is like 2.5, maybe 2 3/4, for the same reasons, right? You do this massive transitional journey. You kind of get them to day two operations. You figure out day two operations, and then they're kind of like, you know, the platform hasn't really reached BAU. That's probably not the right terminology, but it's reached the
Yeah,
next logical step where they can still function with or without you, and then it's kind of a nice, graceful
yeah.
goodbye, and I'll move on to something else.
Absolutely. I don't like to be a leash consultant, as I call them. I really love to enable a company, leave the documentation in place,
Yep.
enable them to do everything they did up until now, but without me. So I can go on vacation, I can do whatever I want, and I can jump on my next company. Yeah, yeah,
So one of the things that I know personally, because I've spoke to you and heard you talk at conferences, right, is you have this knack of being able to explain really complicated technology simply, and I think that's great as a consultant. Something that I also pride myself on. But you recently gave a talk at Cloud Native Rejects North America. That was last week or the week before,
yeah,
where you explained eBPF to your grandma.
yeah.
Which these teaching your grandma new tech has become somewhat legendary. I've obviously seen the previous one where I can't remember what it was that you taught your grandma now.
On Kubernetes. Yeah,
That's it. You
just
taught her what
Kubernetes. Yeah.
Kubernetes was. Yeah. So could you kind of share that story, specifically the eBPF one, because I wasn't there.
So, my grandmother is cloud native aware. I was aware of cloud computing and then Kubernetes, and she's really curious. So, when you're after lunch, you open your laptop, you start working on things. She sees a lot of like colored writing because I use a lot of modules on my CLI. And it started saying, "Well, what are you working on?" And I said, "Like just yeah, cloud stuff." No, but I want to know exactly what you're working on. Explain it to me. And I was like, okay, it's eBPF stuff. I was using Cilium and I was setting it up, and I was like, yeah, it's a thing that does something. I started explaining it in very like complex terms, talking about networking and stuff. And then I said, like, wait a minute, this is my grandma. I cannot go that deep. So I started like thinking about metaphor to use, and of course, like the kitchen was the first one that came to my mind because I just finished a very nice dish that she made for me. So I was like, okay, let's use the kitchen again. And I had the idea for the talk there. And I think that the key to explain complex technology to non-technical people is to first relate to them, understand their background, what do they know, what do they like. You did it greatly with football. For my grandma, I use kitchen because she loves to cook. like a lot of grandmas do, especially in Italy, I would say. But for, I don't know, your father, you could use cars. Yeah, for your mom, you could use books. One of my talks has been very, very great for my mother because I used Jules Verne, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea as a metaphor for platform engineering. So I say that, yeah, it's very, well, it depends on the person. I just try to identify what the person wants to understand and why, and then I create something around it.
Yeah, I do something similar, right? I say like, you know how, and then like state some kind of issue that you're having, and then I say, so what I do is, and then I kind of share the solution, and then I give a kind of for example to kind of give some proof. So my previous one for like what I was doing with platform engineering was a lot around like a restaurant and the kitchen behind the scenes. Like, you don't really care how it all gets made, but when like, you know, the chef is not available, we need to make sure that we have another one so that the food just keeps on getting shipped out the door.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
So for our audience who might be struggling to explain cloud native concepts to non-technical stakeholders, like what tips would you share?
So I will repeat myself on the first one, which is context. Try to understand what and why they need to know something. Then I would say start simple. Don't try to explain every concept at once because it's not going to stick anyway. Our level of like attention is very low nowadays. Give them a win, as in like explain an easy concept first that they can grasp so they can feel motivated to go on. Because if the first concept is the most complex, then maybe it's a bummer for them. So they're not going to be very happy to continue the conversation. Don't be afraid of using any analogy you can think of, even if it's not perfectly fitting. But if it helps the concept, do it. I wouldn't try to explain very complex concepts like Kubernetes in 5 minutes. Just take your time, make sure that they understand first like some basics of like Linux, cloud computing, containers, and then you can move up to the level. I would think that these principles are like what you can give to your teacher, because we all had like some teachers in high school or in uni, and they were not like super clear in explaining stuff. They can use metaphors, they can simplify it. It doesn't need to be all difficult to be taught. Yeah.
True, I agree. So you've been deeply involved in the community, right? That's how we met. So you've organized KCD Netherlands, you've organized is it Cloud Native Container Days? Is that the right one? Is that the right?
Oh no, it's Cloud Native Community Groups, which
Sorry,
is still
Cloud
under
Native
the
Community
CNCF.
Groups.
They are meetups basically, like way smaller than KCD.
So what drove you to take on these roles?
So I moved to the Netherlands like 2 years ago, and to be frank, I knew almost no one. So I was like looking for an excuse to go out of my house and meet some people. And why not starting with tech? Because I'm really passionate about it. So I started going to these meetups. I met a bunch of people. I myself organized events before, more in the music and metal space. But I think that organizing tech events is not that different, aside from the fact you don't need an ambulance at any concert. But yeah,
Hopefully not.
that's easy. You don't need bouncers. So and I like the fact that I can set a stage for people to share their knowledge and experience, to talk with each other, to share ideas, to eat. Why not? To drink. And maybe I can even inspire some people to start and speak. We are really glad that we can foster this community by enabling other people to become speakers. I'm tired of being a speaker. I'm gonna retire very soon, so I need another one to take my spot. And I really like the fact that we can also have sponsors because they are part of the community, of course, and they always need to interact with potential users and customers. And it's very interesting to see it happening, even seeing like partnership between sponsors. I even seen an acquisition happening. So that's exciting stuff.
Yeah, I think it's always good to give back, right? It's very
Absolutely.
yeah, it's a very humbling experience. And especially to see the next generation, right? Like you were saying, to get the new what I would call the new wave of speakers on the stage
Yeah.
talking about what they've been working on, right? They can stand on the shoulders of giants, or in our case, midgets, and continue. So I know you taught Kubernetes at the Italian Ministry of Economy and Finance. So that's a pretty unique experience. So could you tell us a little bit about that? Like, what were you there to do? What did you achieve?
Yeah, so that's part of my educational part of the career and training. I was contacted by a contractor that worked within the Ministry of Economy and Finance in a department that was in the district of Rome, so in the capital city of Italy, where all the big financial stuff happens, aside from Milan. Um, and the thing is, in this case, I had to, of course, assess their level. I have to assess the infrastructure. I have to understand what do they need, because the requirements were pretty vague. And state contracts work. That's like that's the norm. I had to navigate a very complex and bureaucratic structure to reach to the people that could give me the answers, which was very interesting. And that structure reflected what they had in the infrastructure. So if you read team topologies, you see that there is always a one-on-one correspondence between the organizational structure and the infrastructure, the team composition. The hierarchy dictates how you build software and how you run it in the cloud, especially. So what I had to do is deconstruct some of this very rigid hierarchy, also due to security, which some of it it's great. But then I had to also bridge people that didn't know anything about Kubernetes and didn't want to, with people that were very excited about it. Everything was in Azure. So
I'm
at least
sorry.
someone had created some landing zone. Yeah, I'm sorry too. But yeah, I mean, all clouds are beautiful and all clouds are ugly, right?
It's
So
true.
that was a great challenge. It took quite a lot of time. Like the course itself, it was 1 month, yeah, but then the support that came after was way, way longer. What they did achieve is that now I'm guessing that at least 50% of their products are off on premise and they are all in the cloud.
So
So
were they doing
that's a
FinOps?
remaining.
Were they doing FinOps before FinOps was cool?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Financial office, financial police for sure. Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest takeaway you had from that project?
So the biggest takeaway that I had, which was actually just a confirmation of what everyone already said, but I never experienced it in the first place, is that most problems are people's problems
Yep.
in tech. This was an organizational problem, most of all. So I was, yes, consulting on technology, but I was also acting a bit of as a therapist for the cloud. I would define myself now cloud therapist, maybe. That
Cloud
would
native
be,
therapist.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, yeah. So before we go any further, you're probably aware that the previous guest leaves the question for the next guest, not
Yeah.
necessarily knowing who they are, what they're going to talk about. So Michelle Donani, shout out to Michelle. That was an awesome episode last week. Has left you a question, Matteo, which is, what is a development or event that has gotten you excited recently? It can be technical or non-technical.
So let me think about it. It will be probably both technical and non-technical,
Okay.
which is the regulations that are happening in Europe around AI. I can explain myself. They excite me because they pose a challenge, a technical challenge on the future, balancing like innovation and privacy of users like us and data owners, most of all, like companies. And I'm excited to see how this regulation will evolve and change and shape the landscape and how solutions will be implemented in the future on a technical level. You know why? Because I worked very hard for GDPR. Like I was there when GDPR was implemented. I was there when everyone was running and everything was on fire. And that was the time that I learned the most about technology in my life, about databases, about authentication, about everything. So I'm excited for trouble. That's what I'm excited for.
Trouble in Paradise is coming.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, same. I'm excited to see what happens. Right, I was speaking to someone that works at Apple, and he was saying that the iPhone 16 with this new AI powered
Yeah.
generative AI inside the phone. It's basically pointless if you're in Europe right now. Because
Ooh,
of
yeah.
because of a bunch of laws, you really only get the major benefit from it if you're in the US. Sorry for all of those who are listening and have now got an iPhone 16
Oof.
in Europe. But yeah, I think that's the new, the empathy and ethical boundaries that we need to go and work out and work through. It reminds me of that talk that we sat in at Sivo Navigate in Berlin when he was
Mhm.
talking about it. So
Yeah.
I want to talk about your contributions to Kubernetes, right? So you're currently the lead of the Kubernetes 1.32 communication team. So what attracted you to that role, and then secondarily, what is that role, and what does it entail?
So I would say that first of all, that role is mostly aimed at communicating externally the changes that are happening in that release of Kubernetes. We are in charge of a series of blogs. First of all the feature blogs. So the new feature owner can write a blog about the feature they're writing, and they are helped, of course, by the special interest group they are part of. And we decide the schedule, we help them out with review, we coordinate all that effort. Then we also have a mid-cycle blog that has been published a couple of weeks ago. That's typically either a deprecations and removal blog. For some releases, we deprecate and remove a lot of stuff because yes, that's part of a life cycle of a product. You can deprecate and remove stuff. I'm winking at all the companies that have a lot of legacy software and they never deprecate any feature. And then it could be also a sneak peek, which was the case this time. We had just new features coming, no deprecations, no big deprecations at least. And in the end, we do the release blog itself, which is the final piece that most people read, informing themselves about the release. After that, we also have a webinar that we coordinate with the CNCF. We coordinate the APR release, so the news outlets that are interviewing our team, and all the like embargoed stuff, like the name of the release, the topic, the logo. We
Has
coordinate all of that.
has it been decided?
I think so. There
Okay.
are various, like, I would say, hints left by our lead Fred. You can read them too because they are like in a public mailing list, dev at kubernetes.io. So you can absolutely subscribe to the group and try and guess the logo, the topic, and the name of the release. I have my own idea. I'm not going to share it, of course, not to spoil for everyone that's listening. But I do have a good idea. But and I don't have any confirmation from the lead.
Okay.
So we are being pretty secretive about it right now.
Cool. And what attracted you to the role of all the roles that you could do with the
Yeah.
Kubernetes project?
Well, I landed this in the previous release. I was a shadow for this role, and what excited me about that was that, well, being a DevRel or somewhat of a DevRel, I needed to up my communication game. I needed to understand more how a very big one of the biggest actually open source project in the world did governance and steered the whole thing. And I think communications is a bridging role, and being a bridge is something that I really love to do. I really like to connect different people to find solutions. So yeah, I think that's the main reason. Like even the networking that derived from the role has
Hmm.
been pretty awesome, especially also at KubeCon in Salt Lake City in person. So I would think that that's the role that you should start to if you want to contribute to the release team or one of the roles. It's my personal favorite. And I would recommend it even because it's not necessarily technical. It can be technical, it helps for sure. But even if you are not a technical person, you can contribute.
Yeah.
The same goes for docs and for release notes. Maybe not the same for release signal, which is more like CI/CD related and testing. You still need to run some comments. So yeah, but generally speaking, the team is very welcoming and the community itself. So that's also part of why I was attracted to the role.
And when is the 132 release scheduled?
11th of December,
Okay.
and so far we don't have any delay coming. I'm hoping that I'm not jinxing it, but it should be all good for the 11th.
Good to know. So, what advice would you give to those in the audience that want to contribute to Kubernetes? So, you've kind of alluded to a little bit there, but say
So
I'm
first of all,
brand new
there is
and
a website. There is a website called kubernetes.dev, and that contains a lot of resources on contributing to Kubernetes. But I would say the most important thing is slack.kubernetes.io. Just join the Slack, explore it, try to understand which area of Kubernetes you like more. Maybe you like networking, maybe you like storage. Try to go to the weekly meetings that these groups have. Generally speaking, try to go to the meetings because that's the way of asking questions directly to the experts of those areas. And yeah, be curious, ask questions. No one will deny you an answer. Maybe they will delay it a little bit because everyone is busy and we are all volunteers. But someone will get back to you at some point.
yeah, I agree. I think that's where I made the majority of my connections. I'd randomly just start posting in channels when I was unaware of something, and then someone called Duffy replied, and then ever since we've been great friends, which is kind of ironic, and it proves the community works, right? So how has being part of the Kubernetes community influenced your career, would you say?
So I've been for a long, long time just a lurker. If you don't know the term, it just means like a person watching and looking from the outside. It was a term like mostly referred to people in community forums, like forum community and whatever. Just like never posting, but always being online and looking. I started asking some questions because, of course, I had to like deploy my first clusters, manage them, putting my applications on top of them. And so I had no idea what to do. Of course, I didn't read the documentation because I'm lazy. And I had great people helping me out in my first steps. And I think now it's time to give back, which is why I volunteer part of my time for it. But back to the question, on top of being very helpful with my career, it also helped me a lot in opening doors for me in terms of networking, in terms of like meeting my next employer, including my new future role. So yeah, I'm just grateful overall to the community, and it really influenced my career for the best.
Yeah, good luck in your new stealth role. I'm excited to see where it is and what you'll be doing.
I'll be doing very exciting stuff. I can't wait to start.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. So you founded your own startup, right, before, while continuing to support these open source projects and open source tech. So how did you balance those commitments? Because they both take a lot of time.
So first of all, I would say my mantra has always been open source is not a business model, but a development model, which is you're not going to get any money out of open source. At the best, you get some leads. At the best, you get some marketing, maybe, but it's not the reason why you do open source. The reason why you do open source is the community having contributions from the outside, having open project governance, giving back to the community itself, having almost free bug triage. If your product is used, users are very prone to complain. Feedback
Oh,
loops
they are?
all the way, of course. So like, have you ever saw an issue being opened in GitHub? Hey, this product is awesome. No, It's always like it's called issue also. It invites you to just list whatever is not working on the project. So yeah, I would actually propose for a rename, but that's a separate thing.
We should propose for another type though. We should have like a, the
Yeah,
positive
kudos.
vibes. Yeah, like a
Yeah.
kudos. Yeah.
Back to the question, I would say that providing support for this open source project that you maintain, providing enterprise features, which is also, I think, very. Can you still hear me, Steve?
I can hear.
Just checking. Perfect. Providing enterprise features that are maybe more of like, I don't know, audit, something more of like federation, authentication, like the usual set of enterprise features, high availability, multi-cloud, that's a self-hosted version didn't have. That was the key, I think, for us to keep the open source core, but then also adding um, revenue making features, I would call them,
Yeah.
which
Makes
are
sense.
needed. It's healthy to have revenues, like you have to. Any open source company has still to pay the bills, so and pay employees, most importantly. So I would say, yeah, go and make revenues. Just don't think that open source will make you money, because that's wrong.
Agreed. So you self-describe, and I've described you as this previously to a friend of mine, as the cloud native metalhead, which shows there's room for personality in tech, right, and what we do. So how important do you think it is to bring your authentic self to your work and also the community in general?
That's a great question. I would say I would reply with two different faces, two different masks. One is the old me, and then it's the current me. The old me was very much separating private and public, or private and professional. So I would not say anything about my private life to coworkers, or not anything, but like I would keep for myself most stuff.
Hmm.
Um, After moving away from Italy and from my inner circle of friends, realizing that most of the friends you make are at conferences and in tech, your coworkers, I loosened up those like um, rules that I gave myself. So now I think after opening up, I saw that if you open up, other people open up. So there is like some domino kind of effect. And if you do give your authentic self to others, they're gonna try at least to give the same to you. And that's, I think, pretty important. I've made great friends in the space, and I probably missed out as many back in Italy or back in some other companies where I was a bit more wary of opening myself up. So now I would say for any, unless something changes, I would still bring myself. Of course, not everything, but most of myself in a professional setting with some filters depending on the situation. But yeah, I would say that it's pretty important that you do it. It's also less exhausting to do that.
I agree. And I was going to ask you the question of like, how has the community responded? But I'm going to tell you how the community has responded because I am one of the community, right? So I always look to find you at conferences because like you're just super authentic. You and I just, you know, shoot the you know what half the time and just talk nonsense and then also have some deeply technical conversations at the same time. And I think that authenticity and like openness makes you an easy person to talk to, whether that be just, what did you do last weekend? How's your week going? Where were you? What things are you working on? Or like, oh, Matteo, like I've got a problem. Like, have you ever experienced this before? How did you deal with it? Right. And I think having and being able to have those two types of different conversations with the same person is like super valuable. And I hope that I do that back to you. And if I do, then that's what I want to do.
Absolutely.
And if I don't, then tell me, because that's the whole point in
No,
what I try
that's
and do moving forward.
the feeling is mutual, and actually, that's how I look at the community myself. When I went to Rejects in NA, I was looking for specific people that I knew already being at the conference. Of course, very open to meet anyone, but I want to stick with certain people that are very authentic, that are like themselves. And then, of course, yeah, they work for a company, and then maybe the next year they work for another, but they are still them.
Yep.
They don't really change that much. They evolve, but they don't change.
Yeah. Different company, same team.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I shout out to Abby for Syntasso. She gave me a really interesting tip, and everyone feel free to use this. I used it recently and it actually worked quite well, which is if you stand on, you know, those tables where they sell coffee that, or like the people congregate
Yeah.
to put tea and sugar in their coffees and stuff. If you stand there, it kind of forces you to have conversations. There's that awkward bit where you both sip your hot or cold beverage at the same time, but it kind of
Yeah.
forces conversation to happen. And actually, I had some really interesting conversations the last couple of weeks by just perching myself by the bit where you go and grab some sugar for your coffees. So pro
I
tip.
actually came back from KCD Denmark and I did the same. So
There you go. It works.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So want to kind of shift gears a little bit to talk about future aspirations. So what's next on your career? Obviously, without naming the company that you're working for, except that you're going to, but like, are there any particular areas of cloud native tech that you're interested about right now?
So I'm very excited to go back to a more technical role, which is a bit further away from conferences, but at the same time, I'll still gonna talk. Not as much as I did this year. 11 events is too much. Probably I'm gonna do half of that, 4 or 5 maximum, including KubeCon in London, of course,
Of
at
course.
least. Maybe also KubeCon in Atlanta, but I still have to decide. Japan is in a bad month for me. It would have been October. I might have been doing that, but let's see. I'm very excited about platform engineering. Like right now, having been part of the working group for a while in the CNCF, I'm very excited to see what's next. We are starting to have a certification for platform engineering that the community can help and shape. There is a lot of buzz, which also means a lot of noise, and you have to be careful about the signal to noise ratio. You
Yeah.
always have to balance it and take out the noise to really get just the signal. And I would say that the next year will be defining for platform engineering. And I think it will evolve in a way where it's more tailored to the need of the company. There are still going to be like software houses building platform engineering products. Don't get me wrong, but I think internal product is the key. So a team dedicated that will take care of the platform and of the developer experience of that platform.
Yeah, I agree. Right, I spent a lot of my time in platform engineering doing kind of transformational projects, as you know, and you've been part of them. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think we finally crossed the chasm now when it comes to platform engineering. Like, people are starting to take it seriously, and it's not, you know, it's not just build a platform and leave it. Right, it's very much, you know, bring the people with you, meet them in the middle. And I think there's so many abstractions now. There does need to be a consolidation for sure, because to your point, there is a lot of noise, and you've got to filter out some of that stuff. And I think we've got to get to a position whereby some levels of the platform do need to become a little bit more boring than probably what they are right now. I speak to a lot of companies, and you know, it's like, Steve, what tool would you choose for insert feature here? I'm not going to call any out. And I'm like, well, there's actually like 17 options that you can have on the CNCF landscape, but here's my top 3 in order, and here's the reasons why I would have them. And I think there does need to be some consolidation around bits and pieces. But yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes in the next year. I think there's some really good advancements in
Yeah.
bringing that internal developer platform, and like not just building a platform for external people to use to leverage your application, but actually to bring the developers with you. And I think there's a huge buzz around it, which is why I'm still in this space, right?
I would say yes. I would say that this is very, very important, and platform engineering is not going anywhere. And even before that it was born, you already had a platform. You just didn't treat it as one.
Yep, agreed.
That's what I always say in any of my platform engineering talks. Maybe people are starting to be sick of it, like the Conway law, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's true. Everyone, we didn't just randomly start to browse different websites with no platform. There was something underneath. We just didn't know what it was, or we called
Yeah.
it something else. So I've spent the last kind of 50 minutes asking you questions. Do you have any for me before we wrap up?
So I would say spoiler on the next guest. I'm very interested in knowing who's next. Of course, after like the most experienced person in Kubernetes, me and Joe Bida, I expect like an even greater guest.
Okay, I won't give the name. I'll give you a spoiler.
Okay.
Someone that's very good at keeping images small.
Ooh. I think I know. I'm not gonna say it, but I think I guessed it. I'm gonna write it for you so you can tell me if I
Okay,
realized or not.
deal. And then I tell you what, anyone else that wants to guess, it's not that. Can reach out to me on Twitter at Cloud Native Club if they think they know who it is already.
Yeah, cool.
And it's
Okay.
not who you think it is.
Okay. Dang it. I'll try again. No, yeah, for everything else, I would just say, what's your big plan for 2025? That's my favorite question. Since we are going to the end of the year, maybe not a New Year resolution, but like,
that's interesting, right? So I think for 2024, I took a lot of time off. So I was off from what,
Cool.
January to September, right? And I did some ad hoc things, but I took the large majority of it off. I think for 2025, working out what my year is going to look like. I think I actually don't want to work 365 days or however many days it is, work weekdays. I do want to take a good chunk of time to do my own thing. I've got a couple of ideas that I want to work on. No spoilers. And I think really moving platform engineering forward in whatever capacity, whatever role, whatever companies that I'll be working with, whether that's the same one that I'm working with now until the end of 2025, or whether that's, we decide to part ways and go and do something else. The cloud native ecosystem is moving so fast, and it's really working out now what part of it I want to latch onto again and kind of ride that wave, because I think there's so many waves going on. If you look at the cloud native ecosystem, it kind of looks like an ocean, and it's really choosing the one or two that I really want to ride out on. And I don't know what they are yet, to be honest with you. I've got a couple of things that I'm interested in, like people keep on batting around observability 2.0, and I still don't 100%. I still don't 100% know what that means, but it sounds interesting. So maybe that's one of them.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I
can steal that idea as in like diving deeper in observability 2.0. That's for sure.
Yeah, and then I spent the last 2.5 years doing a lot of Kubernetes security, right? So I think not that Kubernetes security is going anywhere, but like taking a back seat from that wave and riding that aggressively to like picking up something else. I think Kubernetes security will still be a passion of mine, but I think we can have different passions on different years.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I'm actually writing a blog post, a LinkedIn post about my plan for 2025 and what I'm thinking of. So you've kind of you've tapped in already.
Yeah, cool. Very cool.
And yourself?
Thank you. Well, I would say taking more time off, because I took between 3 and 5 days off this year, which
What?
is very little. Yeah, in total, yeah.
Wow.
And so I need time off. So I'll take some time off. Not a lot because I'm starting a new role, of course, but I'll take some time off. I want to go to more concerts. I did too little concerts for my likings. And then technology-wise, I would say continue to contribute to Kubernetes upstream, continue to do release team work, maybe even release engineering, which is again more technical.
Mhm.
I'm shifting to more technical next year. I'm probably picking up a new programming language, of course, adding it to my Go and Python now stack, I would say.
Rust?
Of course, I have typed, yes, Rust. I wanted to try it out. Since I started with C, I want to see. I want to see if I still have.
I see what you did there.
Still have it, or I'm still
You,
rusty.
you didn't get mine. I said I see what you did there.
I know. You didn't hear the rusty though.
I didn't. Yeah, it's a cool programming language. I've wrote like just a service just to practice on my own time. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool. If you
Yeah, that's it.
if you know C, you'll be good.
Yeah, I knew C. That's the issue. I have to pick it up back. So why not picking up Rust directly?
I think
instead of
it's a good choice.
C?
Cool. So with that, I want to say thanks for sharing your journey. Like your story shows, right? There's not one right path to travel in technology. And for the audience who wants to follow your work and adventures, like where can they find you?
They can find me on most social media with the same handle, mbianchidev. So first letter of my name and my surname plus dev as developer. Even if I'm not just a developer now, but I started like that. I'm not gonna change it. I'm lazy. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Blue Sky, and on any other platform almost.
I have your Twitter and your LinkedIn in the show notes. So if you've got any other ones, I'll
Amazing.
make sure I grab them.
Perfect. Thank you.
Cool. And with that, we'll end the show there. Thanks very much for listening, and see you next week for another guest. Thanks all.
See you.